couple of weeks ago, I had somebody comment on our YouTube channel. They were looking at the training, one of the training videos, the REDCap training, and just randomly throughout the training, Terry was demoing something that was part of our ticketing system and the survey that we use to track that. And they just asked, how do we style the buttons this way? And I realized that we had talked about using HTML a long time ago to create banners, but we had never done a demo on how to style enhanced survey buttons. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So this is how your buttons normally look when you just have the standard buttons. So the first thing we need to do is change we need to enable the enhanced buttons. And to do that, you go into your designer and then go into survey settings for your project. And then you scroll down just a little bit, and right here you have the option to use enhanced radio buttons and checkboxes. So we're going to check that. And then we can go back up here and save the changes. We'll have to do that again. Okay, let me save that. And then just refresh my window here. So this is the way the buttons, and actually I might have, let me go to because this uses the CSS injector. So let me just go ahead and disable that, because those don't normally show up red like that. There we go. So that's how they look when you just enable the enhanced checkboxes and radio buttons. So now what we need to do is we need to style, we need to add the styles for these. So the first thing we need to do is to figure out where this style needs to be applied. And I always go into the inspect, right click on the button and go to the inspect. And I can see here that really I want this to be for the, there's the span, which is the text within the button. But I want the whole button. So I really want this div enhanced choice label here. So if I click on that, if I go here, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build the styling that I want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a border. And it's going to be 2 pixels solid. And then the hex color that I used for this. And I like to put important, anytime I'm adding something, I like to put important because that'll override any styles that REDCap is applying. Because sometimes you'll change something and it doesn't change. That's because there's another style that REDCap is putting on top of that. So this important just overrides everything. It puts it on the top of the cascade. So if I hit enter there, you can see the button now has that border. And let me just zoom in here. So now you can see that button has the border. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this border radius. So you can see here that there's a little corner here and then a rounded edge and then a corner and then a rounded edge. So I'm going to add the border radius property, and it's going to be, and it starts like a clock. It goes, the values that you put in are top, right, bottom, left. So the top we want, and it's kind of weird. So this is the top, this is the right, this is the bottom, and this is the left. So we want 15 pixels on the top, 3 pixels on the right, 15 pixels on the bottom, and 3 pixels on the left. When you have if you have matching top and bottom, left and right, you can get away with just having two values here, because CSS keeps things in pairs. So anything that's top and bottom, you can have one value for, and then left and right, you can have one value for. But sometimes I like to put both, like all four. That way, if I'm changing anything, I have a value for top, bottom, left, and right automatically. And once again, I'll put the important in here, and you can see that it's already applied for that. So now we have that shape. And then the next thing this text color is red, this U of A red. So I'm going to add that property. Oop. So that is just color. And then the hex code for that is 8B0015. And then I'm going to say important again. And you can see the label's already changed. And then the background color. Now the background color is white by default, but since I'm going to be changing that with the whenever we do the hover state, I'm just putting this in so that way I have it hard coded. So the background color is going to be white. You can do white like that, or you can do the hex code like that. If the hex code is a hexadecimal pair, so FF would be red, XFF would be, sorry, the first two are red, the second two are green, and the third two are blue, I believe. So it's RGB. But if you have all 6 characters, or if you have characters that are together like this, and like so FF, you don't need to have both. You could do FFF, because CSS knows that if it's F for one, it's F for the other. So you could do it either way. So now you can see that color's there. So now we have the button, but we don't have the hover state. So the next thing we need to do is add these styles for the hover. So you can see here that now that I've put the background, and actually I need to put important here. Now that I've put the background color on here, it's overriding all the styles for the background color. So even if I hover over this one, it's white. It doesn't change. But if I hover over these, they still turn blue. So now I need to change the hover state. And this class here, it's the same for, so if I click on this green, you can see that it stays and it matches the hover state. So what I'm doing is for this red, I'm going to select it, because now it's going to give me this, where we go? It's going to give me the group for the hover. Oh, I think I need to get back out to here. So you can see here, now it's the label and it's the hover pseudo class. And you can see here that this transition background is being taken out because I'm overriding the background color. So first thing I need to do is add the border again, because we're not changing the border at all. So let's say border. And that you can see is being overridden because it's the same. And, or sorry, let's see, border background. Maybe put these in and just make sure it's working correctly. I normally don't do all of the styling in here once I get it set. For some, like once I target where it goes, And then let me see where. So let me just show you where we would put that. And it might be. Let's see. So once we have this style, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the CSS editor to make it easier. So we want to enable the CSS injector. And then we go into here to configure. And because these rules are, anytime you create a rule in the inspect window, they're temporary. So if I reloaded this survey, all these styles are going to go away, except for this this style that we had on in the CSS injector by default. So let me refresh that. And now you can see they're back to being the same. So the next thing we need to do is I have the rules that I typed up manually. I have them in Notepad. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure this is enabled. We're only enabling it for the surveys. If you have a specific survey that you want it to be on, you could select that, but you could leave it blank for all the forms. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have this rule here, and let me open up Notepad here so you can see it. It's just the rules that I had typed up for the buttons here. And if we go back to the button, you can see here that I'm using this div enhanced choice, which is this, and then I'm using the label element that's nested within there. So this is going to apply to all of those. And then the next thing I want to do is have for the hover and the selected is a little more complicated. So let me just put these on a different line so you can see. This is the same as what we had here, but anytime you select a button, REDCap adds a selected radio or a selected checkbox. So we can see here if I check this checkbox, let me go to and uncheck it, and you can see here hover unselected checkbox and then hover selected checkbox. And then yes, no buttons are the same as radio buttons. So it just has that it's selected. So what I'm doing is I'm applying a rule to anything that has the selected radio class that's here, anything that has the selected checkbox class, or anything that has a hover class. So anytime you hover over something, HTML will automatically put a hover class over, and that's what it uses to do the styling whenever your mouse is over something. So what I'm doing is I'm applying these styles to these three classes. And what I'm doing is I'm changing the border. You can see here, the border is the same color as the background. It's slightly different, but it's still red. The text is being changed to white, and I'm also adding a box shadow. And the box shadow here is, this is the horizontal offset. So what I'm doing is I have a shadow going 3 pixels to the right. This is the vertical offset. So I have 3 pixels going downward. This is the blur. So it blurs the edge by 3 pixels. And then this is the color of the shadow. If you wanted your shadow to come out of the top and go to the left, then these would be negative. And then you could also have a spread. There's another, so if I had like 3 pixels here, that would be a spread. So that's, it's kind of an additional blur. So, but we're not using that. So these are these are really the only rules that you need to have to style the buttons the way we see here. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it into our CSS rules, and I'm going to save it. And if we go back and refresh this, now you can see that the buttons are styled the way this image is showing our example here. And anytime you hover over it or select it, it's going to apply the same styling. And then the same thing with and this little plus and check, that's internal to REDCap. I'm sure you could change those if you wanted to, or move, center the text and things like that. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. Yeah, so the important thing is you just have to remember that you need to code for the initial button design, which is just this div enhanced choice label. And then you have to code for, and you don't have to code for this because REDCap already has a style, but if you want to change the style like we did here to where it turns red and has a shadow, then you would want to make sure that you code for the selected radio buttons and the selected checkboxes and then the hover state.
Looks great.
Thanks. And I'll put this in the chat. Jeanette wanted it, but I will also put this. Whenever we upload the demo, I'll put this code in the on the website so that you can download it and build your own buttons. The other thing that you could try is to go to like Google and then just type CSS button generator. So if you wanted to see other effects, there was one that was really nice. This guy's website, there's like little hover animations and things. You wouldn't be able to just copy these directly and put them in, but there's like some gradients. You can see how these gradients kind of shimmer. Some of these little animations, you can get really complex with them, but if you like, for example, let me copy this and put it in. You can see here there's a lot more that they're doing with these. So you want to be careful. And there's nothing to say you can't build this, but it's going to be a lot more complex than what I showed you. So it might be something where you just take an example that you like and then figure out how to do it. Or like these, if you wanted, instead of having buttons that have these sort of offset corners, if you wanted buttons, pill shaped buttons or things like that, or even just a little mild radius on them, you could look at, what their radius is. Like this one's a little simpler, and you can just see here, this is just a border radius, 20 pixels all the way around. And if you specify one value, it applies it to all four corners. You could also have things that change in weird ways. Like if you hover over this, it goes from a rounded pill shape to like a square shape or a rectangle shape, that kind of stuff. So, look online and you can find a lot of examples. This guy has a lot of styles here.